Once again, for those of you who weren't here for the earlier opening, you're all very welcome to Gartolane Art Centre this time, and we thank Sheila and all the staff for being so accommodating and helpful and giving us this amazing space, which we're always pleased to have for use of. This is from Max. Lots of people here knew him. I'm sure there are plenty of people that didn't know him. But those that did know him loved him. And looking at the crowd here tonight, you know, there's no way of telling how Max would have responded. He might have gone home and not liked it. He might have given out about everything, or hopefully he would have loved the support that he's getting and all the friends that have turned out. So, as you all know, this is an Imagine Lights Festival 2018 production. I'm only talking about visual arts, sorry everybody else. Lots of visual arts happening. There's an exhibition in Goma. There are 2 exhibitions in Tremor tomorrow night. I hope as many of you as possible will come, because Tremor is a little bit outside and it doesn't get the usual waterproof following. And there are exhibitions all around the city, and anything I'm forgetting. In the library, in the Index Gallery, John Gallagher and Eleanor Owen were there, in various restaurants around the town. All the usual stuff that happens during Imagine, as well as a million other different things. Birds of Burden are launching the album here straight after this evening. So without any further ado, I want to thank you all for being here, and I'm happy to introduce Dr. Peter Jordan, and thank you for opening this meeting.
Well, I was very honoured to be asked to say a few words at this exhibition opening by Anthony and Jer, both asked me about it. And I got to know Max quite well from meeting him at exhibition openings when he'd arrived here in the, when was it, in the 80s. We often met together and would talk about the works on show. And I was often struck by how perceptive and how knowledgeable he was about the nature of art. He would offer quips about the different artists and the style and that sort of thing, and a very informative, very interesting view. I quickly realised he was a very able and intellectual figure, really. I think his speech impediment made it difficult for him sometimes to communicate, really, but when you did manage to have a good chat with him, then you could see he was a very knowledgeable and perceptive artist. He was born in America in 1940, and he originally studied literature, or literary criticism, I should say, at Rutgers University. And I think that affected him throughout his whole career. He took a sort of literal interest in artistic subject matter at a time when really in America they were just, I suppose, coming through the phase of abstraction, the abstract expressionists, people like Pollock and de Kooning and co. And the prevalent trend really was for art that was more direct, more emotional, with less emphasis on story or narrative. So Max bucked the trend, in a sense, by turning away from that towards his more literary interest, I suppose you could call it. When we look around, we can see much evidence of this in the works on show. In some ways, then, he was typical of the time as well. We were in the early 60s when he was coming into this interest. He was really it was really part of the movement towards popular taste, popular art, in which subject matter, more accessible subject matter, was beginning to re-emerge. And also there was a movement called op art, optical art. And if you look closely at a lot of the work around, there's certainly very much an optical dimension to it. It's actually a very deeply sort of conceived work with many influences there. And I can see the work of Escher, the great op artist, in some of the constructions of his backgrounds and that kind of thing. In other ways, we can see humorous comments that he might have picked up from the pop world, from people like Lichtenstein, who would be adapting comic imagery into his art forms, that sort of thing. There's also something of a satirical cartoonist about some of the work. If we look at it carefully, we read it carefully, we can see quite witty observations about the nature of life and society generally. And I was thinking it was particularly prescient of him to undertake the nomination of Barry Baldwell down there, which seemed to actually conceive of the nomination of perhaps a rather eccentric American president. I don't know whether you're all familiar with the piece, but just by the door there, where there's a Republican convention, political convention, in which Max seems to envisage, the possibility of some kind of nutcase being elected into the presidency. Let me see now, he started in the, 63. He transitioned, as I call it, from literary to visual art in about 1963. Made this shift. And he was working in America then for a time and established something of a reputation for himself. And he actually, on his website there, quotes a thing from the New York Times, where it said he was noteworthy amongst the unknowns, which is kind of rather guarded phrase. Noteworthy amongst the unknowns. I think after that he went on to establish himself more widely and managed to become patronised by the Meisel Gallery, which seems to be quite an important gallery in the city in New York there. Such that Max's work was held there. In fact, I think there's still a number of triptychs, pieces, enormous triptych pieces still there. I'm not sure what's going to happen to them. So that's all going well. And then all of a sudden, 1986, he decides to make a move. A bit like his forerunner, Paul Gauguin. But in this case, he doesn't move to the sunshine, to Brittany or whatever, but moves to Ireland, and particularly Waterford. Now, I was never able to get any explanation for this. If you read the critique of Gauguin, then it said he moved for cheap rents. Maybe it was something like that. Maybe some practical, mundane reason, nothing to do with artistic feeling. Once here, however, I think his work achieved its full flowering. We can see the vast array of subject matter and technique around us here now. I'm struck particularly myself by the waterside image over there that's on the invitation, and it seems to be an absolutely superb piece of work, detailed observation and a beautiful sense of colour. Somehow that stands out for me, and I think the City Council and County Council have acquired it for permanent residence. I think he was also an interesting figure in many ways. He was quite happy to share his talents with other people. He engaged in collaborations. He was far-sighted in that way, for moving towards a more collaborative view of things. And he combined with artists like Ben and Tony Anthony in various works. We can see a couple of them at the back there, down there. More than that, I was just reading something by that popular philosopher Harari recently, who said that the most desirable human attribute is flexibility and responsiveness to new ideas and technologies. And I was thinking that epitomises Max's approach, really. Once computer equipment came along, computer possibilities came along, he quickly caught onto that and used it to very good effect. He was able to bring technology to good bearing in all his creative work. He quickly moved away from the pen and paper side of things, or limiting himself to that, to try and take advantage of the modern medium. Overall, I feel that he's made a very significant contribution to the world of art. I think the interesting comment in the New York Times, amongst the unknowns, to some degree sort of summarises the difficulty for many artists in the provinces and various remote places. They don't quite get the acknowledgement maybe that those in the major centres do. But he has contributed a great amount. I think he's enriched the Waterford life. He took part in projects locally, engaged with the local community arts people. And I think the O'Regans, Ollie and Anthony all took him under their wing and looked after him and made his time here while the O'Regans were very pleasant. They kind of made his move very successful and very enjoyable for him. I think it was a good move on his part. And so I'm very sad to see his passing, and I'd like to just say that I think I'll miss bumping into him. I always found him very enjoyable to talk to and very interesting to sort of get his view on things. And so I think that's probably all I can say. I hope you enjoy the exhibition. I hope you appreciate his work, and rest in peace, Max or Ernest, whichever way you wish to be called. Thank you.
I suppose one thing I want to just maybe to add to Peter's, I think we should definitely give a big round of applause to Anthony Costing, because this work, this exhibition is a labour of love for Anthony, and he spent a long time putting this together. And if you even see the display stands, there's a lot of interesting stories and little kind of side things that Anthony uncovered when Ernest died suddenly. And but I mean, the way he was, Ernest, he kept everything. He kept all his, even his sketch pads and all sorts of things. And Anthony went through it all forensically. And so I really do think that this exhibition is, while we're acknowledging Max's life and his work, but I think also we should also really thank Anthony for the beautiful job he did, getting this lot of the work framed and chasing up people who had various pieces and asking them could they have it in the exhibition and all that. So well done, Anthony. Thanks very much.
That Max made a whole heap of prints. They're really top quality. All of these pieces are available to buy in print form, and we have them here. There's like you can get these for €200, which is steal, absolute steal, and they're all limited editions. And the quality of them, as you can see, are quite stunning. This one, they're all available to buy.